Welcome, everyone, to this WHAS 11 special. I'm Doug Proffitt, along with our chief archivist at WHAS 11, Joe Federle. He went down and he found the special we did in the 1980s called Postmodern on Main Street, anchored by Jim Mitchell at the time. Right. WHAS 11 got the first look inside what was then the brand new Humana Tower, such an extraordinary example of the Michael Graves architecture, and we put an hour-long broadcast on. Joe, this is big news today because in Louisville, it's just been announced by the mayor that the Humana Tower, which is now vacant of all its employees, they moved to another Humana building on Main Street, is now going to become a 1,000-room convention center style hotel, and we hope it'll lure bigger conventions to the city. This is going to be a massive undertaking, Joe. This is an office building. This is not hotel rooms.
1,000 hotel rooms. It's going to be huge. But if you look at the other places that's done this, like the TWA terminal, they were able to put it in the great architecture that already exists, and it looks awesome. You can see the lounges. I mean, it's something you'll never get anywhere else, and this is going to be just like it.
In Portland, Maine, there's a great historic building called the Press, and that was the original the Press Herald's building of the Portland newspaper, owned by Gannett. And they turned it into a hotel. So it can be done.
The Chicago Tribune building?
That's right. They're not going to even break ground until 2027 to get it started. They're saying 2 to 3 years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you look at this attitude of personality of architecture that's already been loved in the community for years, you can't do anything better than that. You can't build anything like this because they put so much effort. And that's what this special does. Most of the special talks about Michael Graves, and we interview him, and he talks about how he was trying to get away from the modern movement in art because he felt like it was too constricting. So he was part of the postmodern movement, and that's what this title gets from.
So the founders of Humana, Wendell Cherry and David Jones, they spared no expense on this building. You know, you hear about the gold, the gilded
Italian
marble, the gilded stripes down in the middle of the tower there, and the columns, how it was built to embrace the river city's history. Take a look at this. This up here was to highlight the bridges across the Ohio River.
You can tell that's the north side.
The truss there, and then the buildings along the side of it here were actually raised. They raised right up to the top to the historic buildings of Main Street to match them.
Right.
To sort of embrace them.
The marble comes out at the same height as the buildings next to it. So and on the south side of it, you talked about the north side looking like bridge trestles. The south side looks like Churchill Downs. Right, the Churchill Downs barns.
With the barns is that they were supposed to reflect the south side, which is of course where Churchill Downs is. Now the thing about the Humana Tower, it's not just a building; it was a source of pride for the city. It was two hometown guys who grew up here, and they founded this company with one single nursing home, and then it rose into this giant insurance behemoth. And it was headquartered here. And the thing about the Humana Tower is it brought thousands of employees downtown every day. They went to the restaurants and to the coffee shops. Now they've moved down Main Street, but
still downtown.
The big question is, will this hotel do the same for downtown, which needs a revival?
I think this is the biggest thing in a long time, you know, because this is an iconic piece of history, great architecture. He says in the piece, Michael Graves, he still embraced the classical part, but he also liked the new curves. You look at the building and you really don't know how it came about. It's great to hear the actual person in his own words describe why it's like this. And if you look at, I mean, I didn't even realize the part about Humana that they had a big heart. Anything to do with cardiology, they were really pouring a lot of money into the development of.
They were trailblazers in the artificial heart project. So, opening day was 40 years ago. Here's a look from WHAS 11's Melissa Swan.
One prominent Louisville resident called it the biggest thing to happen to Louisville since George Rogers Clark. Now, that could be overstating the importance of the new $60 million Humana corporate headquarters, but from the oohs and ahs of the huge crowd at today's public dedication, it's obvious Humana has hit the heart of Louisville. And that's exactly what the Kentucky natives who founded Humana intended to do.
We decided that we wanted to build a building in a thoughtful way to try to make it an example of what could be accomplished here so that those who build the next buildings here in Louisville will build and try to build even better than the one that we've built.
If we're going to build one, we're going to build a great building. I think that's exactly what we did. I'll leave it to you as a jury as you see it for the first time, many of you today.
In what has become a Humana tradition, the dedication was also splashed with class. The Louisville Youth Orchestra performed during the ceremony. And Michael Graves, the New Jersey architect who gave birth to the building, was the star of the show.
You may think it's world class, but I have a feeling we're standing in the center of the universe.
Graves, along with Jones and Cherry, dramatically unveiled the 3-foot-high gold leaf letters over the door of the entrance. As the crowd poured in, many stopped to admire what might be the most impressive part of the building. The architects called these fountains a gesture to the nearby Ohio River, but many of the sightseers just called them neat. Inside the lobby, they gazed approvingly at the white, green, and beige marble from Italy and the black marble imported from France.
The entrance, where the water fountains are, beautiful. I think they did a great job. You know, it's a lot of money in this building.
Oh, I think it's going to be a trendsetter, yes. I don't think anybody's going to settle for boxes anymore.
Today, Humana officials admitted there is something too big for them to handle. That was the size of today's dedication crowd. The crowd was so large that no guided tours of the entire building were given. But Humana says later this summer, the public will be invited to see the whole building. Melissa Swan, Action 11 News.
So over 40 years, the Humana building has aged. They're going to have to really get into it, top to bottom, tear things out. It's about a 27-story tall building in downtown Louisville. It's going to be quite the project. You know, building the project was such an amazing thing to witness when it was. My friends and I, we'd get in the car, I kid you not, park on Main Street, we would walk in the building. No security stopped us whatsoever. We just walk around. I remember before when there was drywall still up on that upper floor. We could walk around.
Really?
Nobody said a word to us, and then we would leave. That couldn't happen today.
Right. Remember you told me about, and I've seen this, my mother had a little red book where you go and you take the tour and you have a little red book that talks about all the reasoning of the fact that it was so expensive, Italian marble.
Right. Well, the mayor at the time, Jerry Abramson, and his wife Madeline got married, and the reception was right there on that overlook out of the Ohio River. We, as weekend reporters at the time, were invited up after the wedding ceremony to interview the mayor and get some video, and then they escorted us right out.
That's awesome.
On the 25th floor of Louisville's Humana building, the once single mayor, at the age of 42, greeted a crowd of 170 guests with his new wife, 33-year-old Madeline Miller. The reception was held on the terrace overlooking the fountain and the city.
It took me a long time to get her to say yes, but she finally said it, and we've tied the knot.
The wedding was held in the downstairs lobby area of the building. It was closed to the media, but upstairs, the newlyweds smiled for the cameras. The crowd, mostly relatives and some close friends, looked on.
Oh, I'm very excited, a little nervous, but excited. I didn't think this would come off. Waited a long time.
As a dad, did your eyes well up?
Yeah, quite a bit.
William, thank you.
The mayor's famous comment about being married to the city was one his mother took seriously at the time. But Shirley Abramson is now glad to see a new permanent love interest in her son's life.
Well, we'll see what'll happen, you know, and how much time he's going to have. Because you do have a difference in your life once you get married, and you have two mistresses instead of just one in the city.
Did you cry at the ceremony?
Yeah, well, you know, this is my last child. Of course, he's the oldest, but this is my last child we're married.
This is Jerry's famous uncle who got married at 42 as well.
That's right.
And I'm his daughter, so.
We followed the same pattern.
Inside, the reception was catered by an Abramson friend, Vincenzo Gabriele. The wedding cake, chocolate mousse with raspberry filling. Madeline Miller's wedding dress, a silk, pink, hand-beaded, high-neck outfit. The wedding lasted 40 minutes.
Very peaceful, very wonderful. The rabbi did a beautiful, beautiful job. It was very beautiful.
Anybody cry?
No, I think the mayor laughed through it, really.
It's got to work. Somebody's got to work.
With my working and his working, I don't think we'll be seeing much of each other during the day, but we always communicate by phone, keep each other posted on how the day's going.
The mayor showed off a gift from his new bride, 14-karat gold tuxedo studs, the fleur-de-lis. They mingled with the crowd in the muggy night air, and when it came to the big question of the night, the mayor was all mum.
Where's the honeymoon?
Someplace. And we ain't telling.
But we're reporters, we can find out.
Yes, well, good luck to you.
Good investigative report.
Oh, that's right. 1985 was a really cool year. There's so much stuff that happened in 85. That was the year that Abramson became mayor. And he also, I mean, like you said, I didn't know he got married there. But in 1985, we had a special about the reopening of the Brown Hotel. It was in January 1985. And in this special, we also put it online a couple years ago for the 100th anniversary of the Brown Hotel.
The Brown Hotel. The magic returns.
There's this really great commercial. And do you remember the old Liberty Bank commercials?
Yes, they were all done on film. They brought an actor from out of state to do it,
Right.
and the whole city was talking about it because it was big time,
Right.
and it made us think, hey, Louisville's pretty special. This is a pretty big production.
It's very
ad.
poetic. You could tell it was written very well. This commercial here that I found, you can see the guy on a steamboat talking about Louisville.
That's the Belle of Louisville.
And in the background, you can actually see the Humana building in construction. You've never seen it, at least I had never seen it, in the middle of construction.
200 years ago, this river was the new highway west. Thousands rode her waters to a new life until they came to this spot, the falls. Here, the journey meant walking on the land. And out of those countless footprints grew a great city, Louisville. A dynamic blending of people bound together by a will to succeed and supported by Liberty National. Following the footprints of Louisville for over 130 years. There are banks, and there's liberty.
Well, let's talk about this 1 hour special here, the Humana Building Special.
Jim Mitchell.
We're going to take you right inside. Again, WHAS 11 got the first view inside before the big grand opening, which you just saw in that report that we brought you from Melissa Swan. Enjoy Postmodern on Main Street.
It glows in the evening sun like a relic of some mysterious past, or the harbinger of a fantastic future. It teases with hints from the history of architecture, but it's startling in its originality. From the pages of international journals to the corner of 5th and Main, the topic is the new Humana building.
I think the building is just outstanding in adding to the character of downtown Louisville. Initially, I think I even thought it might be a little odd next to, say, First National Tower, but I think it's beautiful. They've done everything right.
I think it looks like a big cash register, to tell you the truth.
Well, I like the design, and it's, makes Louisville look a lot better.
Marble's kind of expensive, and I think they could use it, more to help people than just putting up a nice big building that, it's not going to help anybody if the building was just a plain building and do the same work.
It will be a rich, lavish, well-made building, and there's always something wonderful about that. I sense, though, that the form is somewhat awkward, and also that it will not relate with particular ease to the surroundings.
It's gorgeous. It's terrific. The small things about it, maybe I don't like, but I think from the time they announced the competition, it's bound to be one of the most exciting things that's happened in Louisville and even internationally in terms of architecture.
I don't think there's been any real innovation. There's simply a hodgepodge of various details that have been thrown together, and this has been called a building.
People have strong opinions about the new home of Humana, but they don't mind. Controversy is second nature to Humana. People are thinking and talking about Louisville's architecture, and that's just what Humana hoped would happen when it decided to build a headquarters at 5th and Main. When we come back, we'll find out why everybody's talking about Louisville's newest landmark and explore the phenomenon of postmodern on Main Street. Just the fact that Humana decided to build a headquarters in Louisville assured that it would be news locally. Humana employs 4,000 people. They're one of Louisville's biggest assets. They are innovative, aggressive, and willing to take chances. The company was founded on risk. It began when Wendell Cherry and David Jones borrowed some money with the idea that they could turn medical care into a tax-paying, profit-making business. In the past 20 years, they've succeeded. Humana has grown into a $2.6 billion industry that employs more than 40,000 people worldwide. Humana stock, bought in 1968 at $8 a share, is now worth almost 100 times as much. Humana is a true American success story. Cherry and Jones believed in free enterprise and competition and applied their beliefs to a field where competition was unknown. It was risky, but it paid handsome dividends.
Dr. Canfield, 7464. Dr. Canfield, 7464.
Humana's willingness to take risks has meant more to Louisville than jobs and taxes. When indigent care became a crisis and the new university hospital stood empty because no one would take the risk of operating a hospital for the poor, Humana stepped in and decided to run it. They opened a neighborhood treatment center as well. Wendell Cherry explains why.
I think the Access Center was more of a community decision because there was, at that time, if you'll recall, the university hospital was having a lot of problems. People were being turned away, and we just thought it was something to do. So we located the Access Center up there to take care of people. Essentially, if they couldn't pay, they didn't pay. But the university hospital situation was certainly, it certainly had a community aspect about it, but it was a business decision because we had a terrible problem here of taking care of people who were medically needy. There was severe financial crunch going on over there. The university was having problems with it. And we thought that if we're one of the premier hospital companies in the country, that maybe we could be part of a solution. So we went over and talked to the mayor and the county judge initially and laid a plan on the table as to how we might help. And it turned out very well, I think.
For Louisville's mayor, Harvey Sloan, Humana's risk was the city's gain.
The great part of the contract from our standpoint is that Humana takes the risk. If they cannot provide the care that's needed over and above that contract financially, they're responsible. They're at risk. They lost $6 million the first year. The second year they made about $1 million. They gave half of that back to the university. That's a great load off of our backs in terms of seeing whether or not people are able to get care. And I can say where other cities have this tremendous problem of how we're going to take care of people that have no insurance, and as we see cutbacks with Medicaid and Medicare, it becomes more serious. We don't have that problem in Louisville.
So I think that the opportunities for the actual development of the open heart program and actual development of the heart transplant program and the heart implant program are just absolutely fantastic. And I am very excited to be here. I'm excited to have my team here.
Humana's willingness and ability to take financial risks brought Dr. William DeVries to Louisville, and with him the attention of the world as he began a series of spectacular artificial heart implants.
Experiments on the human heart are very costly, mainly because they involve a large component of care in a hospital, before and after. And he was having a hard time getting funding out there to carry on the work. We saw ourselves in the position of being able to help it, and we made the commitment to do up to 100 as long as scientific progress was being made. And we sort of leaped into it and said, this is something to do. Maybe if it works, it will benefit a lot of people. If it works, I'm sure sometime it'll benefit us, because we're trying to create at the Humana Heart Institute International a center of excellence that will rank among any in the world so far as taking care of problems of the human heart, be they implant or transplant or any other thing that has to do with cardiology. So it was opportunistic in that sense, and it has brought a lot of attention, probably more than we would have thought at the time. But again, we were following our heads and our thoughts about what should we be doing and why. And I think we made a good decision about it.
Humana's influence goes beyond health care. Wendell Cherry was the prime mover for the Kentucky Center for the Arts, and the Humana Festival of New American Plays at Actors Theater put Louisville on the national map of cultural attractions.
You're simply not an original.
Humana is not without critics. The very concept of for-profit hospitals has raised the hackles of many in the healthcare industry, and the huge publicity surrounding the artificial heart experiments has led to more criticism. But critics don't bother Wendell Cherry.
I think we've done a good job. We have nothing to apologize for. People continue to debate these traditional questions about for-profit and not-for-profit. But from a society's point of view, the only thing that really counts are you getting good care from the people that are there to care for you. And if we get good marks on that, I don't think the charter we operate under is very relevant. And so the criticism doesn't bother me that much. We just go on doing what we're doing. If we do it well, we'll do okay.
More than okay. Humana's gambler's instincts have paid off handsomely so far, so when the time came to build a headquarters, it should have been no surprise that Humana took a chance by selecting an unconventional architect, Michael Graves. How that came to be when we return. It was an ordinary business decision to build a headquarters in downtown Louisville. Humana's corporate staff was spread all over town. Efficiency was suffering. And it was about time for a company as rich and as powerful as Humana to have its own address. Less ordinary and perhaps more characteristic was the way Humana went about choosing an architect for their building. They decided to hold a competition.
And this is sort of a risky business, of having the competition. We could have had 5 entries and we didn't like any of them. Thankfully, we did. We thought they were all worthy, but I think he said it gives you an opportunity to to help in our community people to think a little differently, maybe raise themselves up a little notch about what architecture or building might be like. So there's a little of a challenge in it, both for us to build it or to have had a competition. And I think at the same time, we hope that it will stimulate. I think we said that in the preface of the book that we'd written about the competition, that we hope it stimulates thinking. I find it, whether people like the building or don't, but how long has it been around Louisville when people were building buildings around here and no one had any opinion at all about them? I think when people start to have opinions about things, something's perking.
From the beginning, Humana was determined that their headquarters would be special. In fact, a design of national significance was required by the competition program. Only 6 architects were asked to submit designs for the Humana building, and all 6 had international reputations. No local architects need apply.
It was not a competition. And again, as far as I know, there was no effort made to approach anyone here locally, even in the state, to talk to them even about the idea of designing a Humana office building. And I think that was an injustice.
Injustice perhaps, but when you pay the bill, you call the shots. And Humana wanted major architects from throughout the architectural spectrum. Jim Walters helped select the final 6.
I think the list that we ended up with are people with very different approaches. I don't think this was not it was not an attempt to find the best postmodernist architect or the best high technology architect. What it really turned out to be in the selection of the 6 was really the key was the diversity. We put together a very definitive program. I think that the key to a good competition is that the assumptions that the owner has in mind be very carefully set out so that everyone is solving the same problem.
Five architects finally submitted designs for Humana's consideration, and when the models arrived in Louisville, Bob Harris said it was like a holiday.
It was like Christmas time when you get all these presents coming in. And the thing that you've been wanting all year long, you open up and it's wonderful and you want to concentrate and spend time playing with it, if you will. But there are others that you have to open and also show some interest with. And so it was that kind of a reaction that we felt.
There was a sense of wonder and excitement, and there were very few of us that saw them could enjoy that, and it made it even worse because it was like having this fantastic secret that you couldn't tell anyone. But I remember when we opened the first one, and I think it was Cesar Pelle's, and we lifted it out of the packing box and looked at the building, and it was the model itself was as if it had been done by a jeweler.
Deciding which of the designs would become Humana's new home was the job of Jim Walters and Bob Harris, architects and Humana executives, along with board chairman David Jones and President Wendell Cherry. There would be no outside experts, no consultants. Each of the schemes was analyzed for energy efficiency, office space, and other practical requirements, such as how easy it is to wash the windows. For more than 2 months, they studied the drawings and models. First one design, then another was the favorite. But in the end, it was Michael Graves' design, a long shot, that got the job.
I kind of say Graves' solution was kind of the second Gatelle del Sol, the month of May that year, because there was some time that was required to really come around and understand what Graves was trying to do here.
And this is black.
That's right, that's black.
And this is bird's eye, bird's eye, bird's eye, bird's eye.
And then the door is bedroom green.
And is the frame?
The frame is bedroom green.
Michael Graves is an architect with a reputation based more on his drawings and his philosophy than his buildings. But that philosophy and those wonderful drawings made him a leader among the architects who have broken the glass and steel barriers of the modern movement. Their work is called postmodern, and it represents a revolutionary challenge to the thinking that controlled architecture for 60 years. But Graves was once a modernist, like almost everybody else. It was nearly impossible not to be. To understand how completely the modern movement, the international style, dominated, look at the skyline of every major American city. The geometric shapes of concrete, glass, and steel have come to symbolize urban America. We've become comfortable with these shapes, even as we stand in awe of their size and their power. But when the modern movement began, these simple forms were revolutionary. Pulitzer Prize-winning author and architecture critic for the New York Times, Paul Goldberger.
The coming of the international style in architecture, of course, was really part of a movement in all of the arts to rewrite the rules and to break away from ways of looking at the world in the 19th century that had become very stultified and dull. It's not surprising that the best minds looked elsewhere and wanted to break away and make a fresh, clean start. If you add to that the enormous technological changes that were going on in the world at that time, smart people felt a certain obligation of art to reflect those things.
The Seagram Building in New York City may be the finest example of the merger of technology and art. Sitting in his office high atop the Seagram Building, which he helped Mies van der Rohe design, the Dean of the World's Architects, Philip Johnson, talked about the intellectual fuel that fired those minds and those times.
What we had to revolt against in the 20s was the old Beaux-Arts way of teaching, the copying of older styles, and we thought copying was bad, and therefore went so far as to have Gropius say that history was the bunk. And we have a great American, the same age as Mr. Gropius, who did exactly the same thing. History was the bunk, said Henry Ford.
Less is more, said Mies van der Rohe. The great Le Corbusier said houses must be machines for living. And Walter Gropius declared that we must start from zero. History was out. Ornament was out. Form was to follow function. The role of the architect was to find the simplest form to enclose the necessary space, and he was to use the most modern of materials, concrete, glass, and steel. But while Le Corbusier sketched utopian cities and Gropius championed worker housing, the modernists weren't building much in Europe. The arrival of Hitler and the publishing of The International Style by Philip Johnson gave the movement a name and helped convince the modernists to come to America. They were welcomed with open arms. Gropius and van der Rohe became deans of influential architecture departments, and Le Corbusier's 7-volume masterwork became the course of study. The international style began to influence everyone.
We had to make, for instance, houses look more like steamboats because steamboats were built just for function. And functionalism became the watchword. And it opened our eyes to all new ways of glass and flat roofs and terrace roofs, Corbusier called them. And we all joined in, a pack of sheep. And then, of course, the real reason the modern movement worked so well was because it's cheaper.
The revolution was really won not because it was run on aesthetic grounds, but really on economic grounds. Those buildings were cheaper to build, and by the end of World War II, that meant something. Similarly, it seemed like the ideal architectural expression for the modern multinational corporation, which was coming to take over the economic picture after the war, too. Now, there's a great irony to that, of course, because, as you know, the international style began with great utopian socialist intentions, that it should finally take over, not on those grounds, but as the style of the corporate state, was a real and profound irony.
Cheap and easy to design and build, the international style dominated America during the 50s and 60s, from the urban center to the college campus. Our buildings became interchangeable. A building in New York City could just as easily be found in Louisville. The difference was merely a matter of scale. Architecture had once again become codified and restrictive. At least that's the way Michael Graves looks back on his years at the University of Cincinnati and Harvard.
Education in the 50s, I think, was probably at the lowest ebb. And judging what we do today in the university as against what I was exposed to, it's night and day. I mean, we were in an arena, an academic arena that in a sense disavowed history. Philip Johnson has said, you can't not know history, you must. I would say the same.
It would take Graves some years to move from his modernist training. Others would begin sooner. Philip Johnson's AT&T building in New York is one of the most impressive examples of what's being called postmodern architecture. Johnson, who helped start the international style, now provided the rallying cry for the break away from it.
Being an ex-historian, I couldn't not know history. I put that up when I was teaching at Yale on the boards. You cannot not know history. It didn't make any good to say that you did. You couldn't, because right out there was history looking at your face. So then I realized that the influence of one's historical, what you'd seen, should be in your work, and I began to do historically, within the modern idiom, to put historical arches and things that I'd seen in paintings, and sort of a proto-postmodernism, if you will, in the late 50s, and looked very funny indeed. But maybe it helped get things moving.
But Johnson doesn't take credit for the philosophical basis of the postmodern movement. In the 60s, a group of young architects led by Robert Venturi decided that less is a bore.
The movement away from modern was codified practically by Venturi and Stern and Jenks in their various writings. And it dawned on me in 1966 when the book came out, Venturi's Complexity and Contradictions in Architecture, that this was right. I mean, it was just inevitable. It was just the same dawn of a new feeling that we got when we read Corbusier's Version d'Architecture back in 1923.
For Michael Graves, the transition to postmodern leader came slowly. As a teacher, he began to reconsider the fundamentals of architecture. His first work recalled history, but the history was the classic modern lines of Le Corbusier.
I was educated to do that sort of thing, and so I set about in the early 60s, when I first arrived at Princeton, to educate myself. And one of the best ways is, though it seems strange, is to teach, so that you have enough time to get to the library, and you have enough time in preparing your own seminars and lecture courses and even design studios, that you start to get to the foundation of architecture.
And he learned finally that for him, the foundation built by the modernist was too narrow.
I found in time, however, in doing those so-called white buildings in the continuation of Le Corbusier's interests, a limitation in expression based in problems of abstraction, finally, that for me was not healthy.
While Graves' ideas were changing, his practice was not. He continued to work on projects other people didn't want.
In architecture, there is a kind of catch-22. For an architect starting out, experience is thought to be very, very important, and therefore a young architect only gets to do, or generally gets to do, buildings that, or parts of buildings that other people are uninterested in. And so architects like myself started with doing many, many kitchens, you know, or back porches, or whatever small job there is. I was called for years the Cubist Kitchen King. One of the ways young architects break out of that kind of catch-22 syndrome of not getting one until you've done one is to do competitions. Once in a while you get lucky, and we've been very, very lucky.
And very talented at the drawing board. Drawings and models win competitions, not experience, and so Michael Graves would win his finest commissions through his art, and it won him fame and influence throughout the world's architectural community.
Michael has one trouble, of course. He's much too famous for the amount of work he's done and for his age. Usually you build your first building when you're 40. Well, he's about 40, a little more, and he shouldn't be talked about this much. But he is, and he is for a very good reason. He's a very, very good architect. Now, the reason one says that is unfortunately based on his drawings. And all the bad luck for him to be known for a series of ravishingly beautiful drawings, which have been totally accepted by the people that have ever seen an architectural drawing. There's no disagreement in the entire architectural world about that he makes by far the best drawings of anybody. And that does show, his drawings show an incredible understanding of the exact moment that we're in. This rather indecisive moment, but a desire to connect architecture to its inevitable past.
His sensibility is still very much that of the Cubist painter, making a kind of collage of elements, some classical, some modern, enormous attention to color. I think it's quite wonderful.
But Graves is quite ready to put his reputation as an artist aside to be judged on his buildings. And his buildings are becoming the definitive expressions of postmodern architecture. The elements are simple.
A belief that historical form is not an evil or an immoral thing to reuse is one unifying principle. A belief that certain modern materials can be used in conjunction with historical form, and that decoration can fit as part of either one, is a unifying principle. So is the idea that form need not be defensible in a purely rational way as an expression of structure, which was very important to the modern architects. So all of those things, but of course, those are pretty vague unifying principles. They don't tell you a lot. For that, you've really got to go on to individual architects, of which Graves is perhaps the most individual and the least typical, really.
Graves won his first major commission in a competition to build a government building in Portland, Oregon. He had to compromise because of the low budget, but the postmodern elements in Graves's work can be seen in the colors he uses to ground his buildings to the earth and open them to the sky. It's seen in the decoration he adds to the basic structure, and it's seen in hints of architectural history executed in new ways. Graves believes his buildings make sense to people because they continue the historic language of architecture, where doors and windows are clearly defined and not hidden in an anonymous glass wall, where the forms and shapes of the building help define the space within. For Graves, postmodern is return to architecture's roots.
For me, if it's anything coming after modernism, which was doctrinaire and was narrow in its focus as far as I'm concerned, it's simply a reestablishment of the language of architecture. Now, we will call it what we call it. If we're bound to call it postmodern, then that's what everybody will finally call it.
Humana gave Graves the budget and the freedom to translate his philosophy into granite and marble. And when we return, we'll look at how that's been accomplished. Winning the design competition was only the beginning for Michael Graves and his staff. First, it was back to the drawing board to completely redesign the south facade of the Humana building, which had satisfied neither Graves nor Humana. Then came the long, meticulous task of transforming the drawings into blueprints. Just a few years ago, when Graves was still the Cubist Kitchen King, his staff was small, and they worked above a Chinese restaurant in Princeton. Now that Graves has become one of America's hottest architects, he employs around 50 people, and they've nearly outgrown the two adjoining houses that serve as his offices. All around those offices are the traces of architectural history, inspiration for Graves's designs. But it's in the color room where those designs take on the distinctive hues that characterize the postmodern style of Michael Graves. It was here that the pink and red granite facing for the Humana building was selected. Humana's $60 million budget gave Graves the freedom to use the kind of materials that his philosophy demanded. It was the first time he had that luxury in a major project. The exterior of the building is faced with 32,000 blocks of pink, red, green, black, and gray granite from all over the world. The inside of the building is finished with 45,000 square feet of marble in 5 colors. The extensive use of granite and marble stretched the skills of local contractors used to building glass and steel boxes.
From a masonry viewpoint, you had to worry about rigging, you had to worry about coordination of material, because the material came from all over the world, went to Italy, and then come from Italy to the United States. And you had to worry about quality control and having enough capable mechanics to do the project in a very, very tight schedule Humana dictated. This particular project took a architecture that existed in our past. It was applied to a modern technology, and we have a look that is postmodern. And this look required a skill from the mechanics that was akin to their grandfathers.
The skill of more than 30 area contractors went into the construction of the Humana building. It was a huge job and a difficult one, but a job that led to a special pride in the workforce.
Yeah, well, I tell my grandkids about it. Yeah, and show people. I've already had my wife in here showing her one time, and everybody thinks it's great.
Is that something you would normally do on a regular building?
No, sure wouldn't. No, this is different. This, like I say, this is the greatest job I ever worked on.
I would give the Louisville workforce and the contracting industry here very good marks for their work on this building. And I think it's something that we can all be proud of, and I'm sure they're all going to take a lot of pride in that product.
In the depths of the Humana building, the combination of old ideas and new technologies continues. The building will be heated and cooled by groundwater pumped from 4 wells drilled into the aquifer below the structure. In the winter, heat will be extracted from the 58-degree water to warm the building. In the summer, the water will help to cool the building. The savings to Humana in energy costs will run about $250,000 a year. And there is energy efficiency in the design of the building as well.
I personally was happy to see that we didn't have a glass-walled building, and that we had a building whose design incorporated small windows. That has a big effect on the heating and cooling requirements of a building. So I think that this, from that standpoint, this is going to be an energy-efficient building.
But energy efficiency and construction technology are not what make the Humana building significant. We are at a crossroads in architecture, a time when the glass and steel of the modern movement is giving way to new thinking, new materials, and new designs. Our evaluation of these new designs could go a long way toward determining what our cities will look like in the future. The Humana building now stands as an important example of postmodern architecture. To really understand this new style of building, we must not only look at it, but be aware of the philosophy behind it. For a close look at that philosophy in action, we explored the building with Humana's Bob Harris, who's been with the project from the start. What sort of impression is it working for?
Well, I think it's trying to do several things. First of all, when you look at it at the large scale as an architectural problem, it had to make the leap between the lower buildings on Main Street to deal with its neighbor, First National Bank. And so the way Graves accomplished that was to have a base of the building, which, as you can see, the columns around the loggia go up to the height that form that cornice line along Main Street. And then the tower itself then is set back from its base and it goes up and it gives its relationship to First National Tower. And so it makes that scale leap by having a base and a main shaft of the tower. But we're pleased with it, and I'd like for you to come over and I'll show you some more. Now this is a spot that I hope will become a very important place in downtown Louisville. I can see it as being a place where people will congregate, whether it will be at noontime to sit along the edge and watch people, or in the evening when people are strolling by and they feel a sense of wanting to come in because of the sounds of the water. So we're hoping it will be a landmark spot.
You have a sense here of being outdoors and yet still within the reach of the building.
Well, that was one thing that Michael Graves felt was important for the building to do, and that was to bring itself out to the edge of the sidewalk. So many modern buildings today push themselves away and form a big open plaza. He felt that he could gain the same sense of a public open space, but doing it by giving it some sense of containment. And I think it's been successful in that. The fountains, I think, are quite important. It's another metaphor that the Graves enjoys using, and that is, since we do have the close proximity to the river, then he felt he wanted to introduce water into the main facade. And at night when the lights are on, it's beautiful. You must come down again and see it then.
Looking forward to it. Let's have a look inside.
Well, and here we are in the lobby.
It is a beautiful place to come into the building. It's just something about the lines and the color just invite you inside, I think.
Well, I think it's the sense of scale that you saw outside is coming down a little bit, and it keeps reducing itself until you get to a typical office floor and you're in your own office, and so you have a human scale about it. But here, it's coming down, but it still has the awe-inspiring nature about it. The use of materials are quite rich. We have 12 different types of marble that we're using in the interior of the building. And as you can see as well, on the second floor, we're using some palmole mahogany on the ceilings. All of the light fixtures are custom designed and made in New York. And so every bit of detail has been thought of, right down to the way the grills are that the air comes out of.
The colors have a warm quality too.
The palette that Michael Graves typically uses involves pastels. Primary colors are not part of his repertoire. And I think that the pastel colors lend themselves to the natural stones that you can find. The creams, the oranges, and the gray tones really work well with Michael's paint colors. The idea that is involved in postmodern design is to try to bring back some of this personal feeling that's been lost in architecture in the past 50 years. If you look at some of the other buildings in town and elsewhere, they're very cold and sterile, and there's nothing really that you can relate to. It's like a machine that you just become a part of. Where here, and in other instances, you gain a sense of detail, something that you can walk up to and touch. Now, both lobbies connect to the rotunda, which is what we're standing in now. And it takes its shape because it acts as a knuckle. It's just like a finger. And when the two lobbies come together, one from Fifth Street and one from Main Street, they connect into this knuckle, or the rotunda that we stand in. It also, as you see, it's taking the scale down just a little bit further again. But the middle rotunda part with the columns, it goes up through the second floor area so that people on the second floor have a connection, if you will, to the lobby area on the first floor. We recently installed these two pieces of sculpture. I think they're quite nice and work well in this space. They're 1st and 2nd century Roman torsos that Wendell Cherry found in a gallery in New York. This is the sunroom that occurs on each of the typical office floors. It's the very prominent feature on the south facade, the bowed window, which is a shaft that continues up the back.
And it's a very important area. It allows natural light to come into the elevator lobbies. Typically in an office building, you will have the core of the building in the center, and there's really no sense of natural light at all. So that was one of the reasons for why this room is here. Another important reason is it offers the people on the floor an opportunity to get away from their work area, to come to have lunch or to sit and relax. And one very important thing that it also accomplishes is the building does not turn its back on the city. By having this view, both for the people that are coming from the elevators and the people who are sitting here for lunch, they are offered the view of the rest of the city to the south. One nice thing about the building and its rectangular plan is it lends itself well to lay out an office floor. We have here an example of what most of the office floors look like. We found that the idea of using office landscaping partitions like these for management and professional people really didn't work well because it was too disruptive. People could hear phone conversations. They could see people walk by. So what we did was that we allowed every management level person, regardless of grade, to have a private office. And so we have lined the perimeter with offices, very traditional. Why don't I show you a private office, and I'll show you what we're trying to do here. When we first started the competition, everyone was so afraid that the window sizes would be too small because they would look at the model and they'd see these little dots and they'd say, oh, you know, that's too small. We're used to big walls of window. But I think that after people moved in, they found that this window, which is 4.5 feet square from the glass size is 4.5 feet, that it really has a nice scale about it. And in an office such as this, I think it works quite nicely. It frames a view for you outside. This is the 25th floor.
This is already, even when the building's youth, become perhaps the best known part of it.
That's right. As some people call it, this is the porch.
Out into the sunshine.
Into the sunshine. Onto the terrace, which is the most prominent feature of the building as it juts out from the face, and it's held up by the truss, which was designed intentionally to look like the girder work of the Ohio River bridges. And it was an image that Graves felt was important to convey with the facade. But this is the favorite spot. This is the porch where everyone likes to come to, and it offers wonderful views, as you can see, and you are held back and feel contained in it, so you don't feel squeamish about being 350 feet up in the air.
Well, the 350 feet is worth the view. This is the spot that's lured everyone we've seen come out here. Let's take a look. A classic view of the river and across to Indiana, and down to the Belvedere and the Kentucky Center for the Arts. And today there is even a serenade from the Calliope on the Belle of Louisville.
Of course, probably the most prominent feature in Louisville is the river, and I think this building tries to take advantage of its position near the river. Some of the other buildings around the Humana building kind of turn their main facade away from the river, and you would have thought they have done it another way. This building's main face is facing the river, and this little area that we're in right now offers a wide panoramic view of all of Louisville. People have said when they have out-of-town guests, they would hope that they could bring them here and point out so many of the features that Louisville has.
Can they?
We hope that they will be able to. It's going to take a little while for us to see how the building works, but I think it's not any different from a lot of the other important buildings in other cities where they offer tourists the opportunity to go to the top and look around. And I hope that we can do the same thing here.
A quick tour of the Humana building doesn't begin to uncover all of its odd corners and intriguing angles. It's the kind of place that offers endless surprises to those willing to explore. We've seen the Humana building and learned a little about the forces and philosophies that brought it to Louisville. Those same forces and philosophies combine to assure that it will be a significant addition to the world's architecture.
There's no question it's a significant piece of architecture. It's the first really major building by one of the most important architects of this generation. Clearly the major building in Louisville of great importance. And it's a corporation that, of course, has a high profile anyway these days and will continue to. And whenever any corporation of that prominence builds a new headquarters, that, of course, gives it a level of importance as well. So on many different levels, it is. And there's no question it's one of the most significant buildings of the 80s, even if it turns out not to be all that good. It's absolutely. I mean, the one thing Humana is not is irrelevant or unimportant.
It's certainly the most important new building of the 80s. It's the most important building in Graves' career. It's the most important building. It's not the most important building since the war. It's certainly the most since the Vietnam War, perhaps. It's a tremendously important building because of Graves. It's really going to make his career. He's been doing very small-scale things, except for a building in Portland, Oregon, which had a lot of problems and cutbacks. There were no cutbacks on this building. The exciting thing about this building is not what it does for the architectural community who can read about it in architectural journals around the world or read the book about a tower for Louisville. The exciting thing is what it does for Louisville, Kentucky, USA, is that Louisville, or somebody in Louisville, has finally said, let's have some class, let's have some art, let's do something that's really worthwhile.
Is it really worthwhile? The Humana building is significant, yes, but does that make a difference to us, to the people who walk by the building or work in it? In general terms, that's a question that Philip Johnson and Paul Goldberger have spent their lives trying to answer.
We used to think that it made a difference. You'd be a better man if you lived in a glass house, said Corbusier once. Well, nonsense. But on the other hand, I can't help feeling, just by the reactions to the AT&T, that when you have a handsome building that's very expensively put together and very carefully detailed with really large pieces of real stone for change instead of just plugged onto a framework, I can't help feeling that it does affect you, that you just feel better if you're in surroundings that are handsomer.
One hopes, at least, that a really good building will make people happier and will make life a little better in some way that's impossible to really put into words or into absolute numbers or anything else. In the same way that art ultimately makes life a little better and a little more meaningful, so can great buildings.
Does the Humana building join the long history of great architecture? That debate has not yet been resolved, but critics and common folk, architects and just about everyone else, seem to have an opinion about Michael Graves and his building.
I still think he's the best, maybe the best architect of his generation. And the Humana building does nothing to change that opinion. In fact, what one has seen of it, it leads one to think that it is his best building and maybe one of the best buildings in the United States.
I think that the Humana building does not have good mass. It does not have good scale. Don't think it would fit anywhere, really, because it's just not a good building in the sense of being pleasing to the eye, number one. It doesn't look right.
It has a kind of elegance about the building. You look at this building, it reads expensive. It reads expensive in a good way, like a first-class effort, as opposed to some of the other cheap, shoddy things like the Art Center right across the street from it. It has that scale we've talked about, this front part. Okay, it's 7 stories or so, but you can relate to it. It has an entrance. I mean, you don't have to wander around the building to find out where the door is.
I don't like the top of it. I don't know what it represents. There seems to be a mishmash of architectural styles and materials, and I just don't know what it means.
I think it's fabulous. It's what this city and a lot of other cities need to contemporize them. It shows a stroke of genius, and I think it shows what kind of a terrific corporate personality Humana has.
I ain't never seen no building like it. I guess I said that's why it's weird, but I think it's neat. And I would like to go on the inside sooner or later when I get a chance to.
Well, I think it's a beautiful object. I think it's, to me, as it comes to me, Graves has built a building that I think will come to be seen if it's not, in terms of the elegance of its materials, its color, its form, its subtleties, And it also has very strong statement aspects about it, but it has some great subtlety when you begin to look at the design. And I think that it's basically an object of art in large-scale form.
The great works of architecture touch our emotions, and like any great work of art, the emotional power grows stronger with the passage of time. A great building should give us something the first time we see it and the 1,000th.
What you feel, ideally, is a kind of warm, happy, comfortable awe. I mean, a really funny combination of things, at least for me. You feel a kind of, there's such a thing as sort of cozy awe. I mean, that's kind of what I feel. I mean, I feel comforted and enveloped in a very nice way. I also feel awe-inspired at the same time. So, and you do, almost your heart skips a beat in a funny way when you know you're in a very special place.
Will the corner of 5th and Main become a special place? Will the Humana building add pleasure to Louisville's architectural environment or become a forgotten novelty? The answers to those questions will help determine what our cities will look like in the future. We all have a stake in that future because architecture is the most public of the arts. I'm Jim Mitchell. Good night.
The one good thing about what David Jones and Wendell Cherry did is that they had great pride in this building, and so they had a competition, an architecture competition. People got to see the different models. There were some wild designs that could have been this building.
Right. I mean, think about it. The one circular one, you saw the models. They were huge, and they did 6 of them. So, I mean, of course, you grow up looking at something. A lot of people, remember the one person I think in the piece says, it looks like a giant cash register. I mean.
Well, at the time, Humana was printing money. Right. So that's why they said that. They were, David Jones and Wendell Cherry and their families were very involved in the community. They created the Humana Foundation, which still exists today, which helps us. But
the Humana Festival of Plays, Actors Theater of Louisville.
But now it's going to become, I call it the Humana Hotel, but they are in the selection of picking a brand name hotel. Who knows? It could be Hyatt. It could be Marriott. It could be Radisson. It won't be an Omni. We know that. Omni's already in the city. But we're waiting for that. Then they'll select a name. And then it'll be a few years from now. And this building, which was such the symbol of corporate excellence, will now become a big hotel right downtown.
How do you like that orchestra music they played over the beginning of it with Jim Mitchell talking about postmodern grandeur?
That's right. Cool. It was produced by the late George Holter. Thank you for watching us here on this special from WHAS 11+.